Welcome to Unexpected Points. Kevin Cole here, Josh Hermsmeyer here. Let's just get this intro going. We got to get to the football. Everybody knows what's happening. It's Tuesday afternoon. It's wrap up time. It's giving you all of the keen insights that your brain could not even fathom of imagining after sitting in front of a TV for copious amount of hours watching pugilistic men smash into each other with their helmets. Josh, one thing about helmets. Have you caught these like cap helmets that they got going on here, like the extra lofty kind of it's like the big hat, that they have. It's like with the big helmet now for some of these guys. Have you caught that?
The Guardian helmets, yeah.
The Guardian helmet. I forgot the
Yeah.
technical name there. It sells itself. Go ahead.
No, it reminds me of like Cam Newton. He would wear those big hats, and it just kind of gives that flavor. So I don't know, you own it, and these guys are trying to keep their brains intact. Who might have say that the aesthetic is bad when that's the goal? So yeah, no problem with it at all. I think it's cool. I see a lot of. I think the guys that should be wearing it the most are O linemen, and I've seen a few of them. I think there's a guy on Pittsburgh. I think a guard on Pittsburgh is wearing one. And obviously we've seen some tight ends. They do a little bit of blocking, but those guys in the trenches, those are the guys like every snap that they have a chance of taking a bull rush right to the face. So I totally understand if those guys want to strap up.
Yeah, I think they look really bad. But pictures, if you get a picture from a certain angle, like it looks like you have some sort of unholy growth going on in the head area. But on the field, it's almost a double take sort of situation. Like that looks a little bit weird. And then you notice that they're wearing it. And I think you're right. Like it should almost be, I mean, not mandatory, but we've learned, and this is part of like a discussion, I think, when it came to Tua and concussions versus other type of hits. I mean, the CTE research, I believe, points pretty strongly to the fact that subconcussive hits, so just the accumulation of smaller hits, is just as damaging, if not more damaging, because of the volume that you're getting versus documented concussions when it comes to something like CTE. So yeah, if you're one of these dudes who's in the trenches and you're just smashing heads every single play, like why not? But maybe we should have had an over-under on Guardian helmet adoption rates rather than kickoffs, because I don't think that kickoff bet's going so hot for me so far.
Yeah, last I heard it's 30%. So I don't know how that is, what the calculation is after 2 games last night. But yeah, I have people updating me. I have my people. And so I think I probably got that in the bag because, okay, so here's one thing that's on your side. And again, I'm the guy who said give it time, at least week 7. So, for me to take a W now is a little bit rich. But the one thing on your side, I think, is that Lopez's take on this is that there will be more returns as the weather gets colder because the ball travels not as far. But I don't know if that's going to be completely dominated by the coaches just understanding that it's just a bad win small, lose big bet. And if that gets internalized across the league, like I think it will be by the middle of the season, then I think smooth sailing for me.
Yeah, I don't know. With the kickoff point at the 35, and all I know is we got to start doing more random drug tests on these kickers because it's getting out of control. How long some of the field goals that we're seeing from these guys, it's a little too easy for them. So yeah, I'm a little bit skeptical of that fact. When you combine domes and places that still have decent weather, that it'll go down that much. But I was thinking that maybe the theory would be as kickers experiment and become comfortable with squibbish sort of kicks, and not landing before the 20, right? Like being able to target that area where it scoots in there between the 20 and the 10, let's say, for first contact, so they can't take it out of the air. Then maybe that would boost return rates, but I don't know. It's seeming somewhat unlikely at this point.
What you want to do is you want to keep track of what Dallas and the Saints are doing because those are the ones that sponsored this rule change. So they have been the lion's share of the kicks that are returnable. They keep doing, especially Dallas, they've been trying out these squib kicks that try and bounce the ball in the landing zone and then go out the back, right? So then the team gets it at the 20. Now, if you could do that reliably, and it seems like that's what they're trying to do, if you could do that reliably, that's a pretty good thing, because then you have no downside risk and you get the benefit of 10 yards. But I'm skeptical that that's something that's repeatable enough that you don't eventually give up the 45-yard return, the 50-yard return, or even, worst of all, obviously, is the touchdown.
Yeah, I mean, and all that really matters for the purpose of our bet is that would still not be a return. So, like, I need those returns. I don't need to stick coming out to the 20. Let's talk about
I'm saying it's not really working. So, like, there are lots of returns coming out of their experimentation. So you want them to keep trying.
Yeah, there's a chance. There's a chance there. All right. Well, speaking of kickers, okay, I know we've done like buy, sell, hold-ish sort of stuff. We're going to talk about some more takeaways here because now we got the classic 3-0/0-3 teams that you throw the 0-3 teams at least in the statistical splits, and it's going to tell you they have like a 0% chance of making the playoffs now. So we'll have a lot to talk about that. But you mentioned kickers. This is important to me. Justin Tucker, washed or not?
So the last read I got on it from Harbs was that John Harbaugh asked about it. He said that there's a process problem, and so it's consistently to the left. And Tucker has always been a guy who hits it perfectly straight, like his whole career.
Yeah, it wasn't just the makes. It was if you diagram out the exact location, it was splitting the tiniest of potential uprights.
Right, and so I truly believe this is just something that John is right. And look, John would know. He came from special teams. That's his thing. So yeah, no doubt that the kickers in Baltimore get it figured out. Will they get it figured out in time to potentially cover this weekend? I don't know. I think the line right now is 2.5 for Baltimore, and if their kicking game hasn't gotten that figured out, I think that's a smash for Buffalo after what they put together last night.
Do you know his contract? It's actually if you cut him pre-June 1st, even after this season, there's like no cap savings. There's no cap savings for this guy. So he's on a healthy
why are you looking at cutting the GOAT kicker right now? Why would
because you cut kickers all the time? I mean, that's like a go-to move.
You don't cut the GOAT kicker.
Oh, you cut kickers. That's what you do. That's what Robbie Gould got cut, and then he was really good for like a number of years. I'm just saying that's a lever teams will pull very quickly. Unfortunately,
not a lever the Ravens are going to pull, for God's sake.
It might be. Hey, mark it. If you get the yips as a kicker, things get a little tough. So that we'll keep that updated. I will not add that to my betting total though of more things to lose on whether or not Justin Tucker gets let go. Okay, let's talk about some of these 0-3 teams. That's what I want to talk about first, because I just put out my power rankings, and despite the fact that I told everyone when I put them out that they were 100% infallible and correct, I still had some people who were disputing some of the rankings that I put out there. One of the biggest disputes was the Bengals still hanging on to a top 10 rating. So I was below the market on the Bengals going into week 1, going into week 2. Going into week 3, I was pretty much in line with the market. This week, I think, although the market number is a little bit weird for betting, I might be slightly ahead of the market. Again, once you get between like 10th and 20th, there's not a whole lot of difference. There's not a whole lot of difference there. What are you thinking? Because so the reason my numbers look okay-ish on the Bengals, not good, okay-ish on the Bengals was week 1, drops took away some touchdowns. They probably should have won that game by the numbers. Defense stinks, don't get me wrong. But in week 2, defense did a pretty good job. Patrick Mahomes did his normal disappearing act against the Bengals. The Bengals offense was pretty good. They probably should have won that game. They didn't. Week 3, the offense was good. I mean, you win 95% of the time with that type of offensive performance, but they just happened to run into a juggernaut on the other side, and a juggernaut that also completed some long passes, which, he was open. McLaurin was open. Don't get me wrong, but maybe you're not going to do that every time, not punt and get some explosive plays like that. What you say about a team like the Bengals, because they're the number one team that people are going to say to me, they're 0-3, so they can't even be, let's like, a top 20 team, let alone on the periphery of the top 10 at this point.
Well, that's ridiculous. So if you look at betting markets, they have them as the 15th ranked team. So I don't know what you have them as, but if they're not in the top 20 of you just because of an 0-3 start, I think.
Well, I mean, according to my rankings, they were 9th, but that's because the Packers, I don't know if Love's going to play, then the Packers jump up above them, so they'd be 10th.
Okay, so you are, as you say, ahead of the market.
It's tight.
I don't know. I don't know if you're ahead of the market in terms of where that team is actually going. Like that, it's a weird way to phrase it, but you have them higher in the market for sure. As far as Cincinnati goes, full disclosure, I had them in my survivor pool. I was one of four guys left out of 32 people in there. So they cost me some money. I'm a little upset. I'm upset at their defensive coordinator. I thought, look, Jaden Daniels is probably the truth now. I mean, he looked really good. But they were.
Oh, wait! Alert! We're declaring Jaden Daniels the only successful quarterback.
Wait! I have a question. I have a question for you. Who's better, Jaden Daniels or Trevor Lawrence?
It's a good question. I mean, obviously there is. Are we talking about like median outcome going forward?
I'm saying we have 3 games of Jaden Daniels, and we can't dismiss the question out of hand.
Yeah, and I'm saying that I know I can't view players in anything but a distribution of outcomes because I'm a sick individual.
Same here. But let me
just like me, I would still probably say Lawrence at this point. But obviously there are a lot. Daniels has more like elite and outcomes and scenarios than Lawrence does at this point, which is kind of what matters when you're paying someone $50 million a year.
That's it. So the upside here. So look, with 3 games, Jaden already has a peak AYA of 12.78, almost 13. Out of 53 starts, we got a peak of 10.3. Now, you can say all the things you want to say about T-Law and make all the excuses you want to make for him. He just hasn't flashed upside in what I argue is a relatively similar situation. Cliff Kingsbury has not been good anywhere, really. He's never been a winner. So the Bengals were mocking their offense, saying it was a college offense, and they're not wrong. I think it is kind of a college offense. It just happens to be the case they have a guy who can execute that college offense at a high level, and he wasn't afraid to pull the trigger on some really tough deep throws to McLaurin, and he was running the ball really well. So, but then the other part of it was that was just a sieve of a defense. I was talking to someone about how I picked the Bengals, and they just started mocking me. They're like, dude, they could never stop Lamar. Their DC is terrible against running quarterbacks. What are you doing? You're a moron. I'm like, God, this was like one of the biggest smash plays on the slate. Like, they were one of the biggest favorites on the slate. I thought for sure I would be able to progress in my survivor pool. So yeah, I'm a little disappointed there. But I'm fully on board with you putting the Bengals in the top 10, top 12. I still kind of think I'm clinging to my preseason priors here. I still think they'll turn it around and be a decent team.
Yeah. I mean, we'll get into some coaching discussion because I've seen that pop up on the old Twitter bot feed. But Sweet Lou, for the defensive coordinator of the Bengals, it kind of shows you like, hey, maybe these guys don't have everything solved. Maybe talent kind of matters a little bit for who you have on the back end there. And then when it comes to defense, variance maybe matters a little bit in that regard. Okay, so I'm interested in your Daniel stuff here. I'm interested in Daniels and Trevor. I think these are great 2 jumping off points because we have island games while running concurrently. Although everyone was upset about it, I personally like the concurrent island games because anything I can do to lessen the load of games that come on Sunday that I have to write up Sunday night, which is a torturous process, I'm down for it. If we could like spread them all out throughout the entire week, I'd be happy about that. But because of this, it definitely felt tipping point-ish for both quarterbacks. More meaning though for Lawrence, because even by my number, so I'll put myself as a statistical truther, apologist for Trevor Lawrence over the years, because his adjusted EPA numbers, which account for drops and other things, look a lot better than his actual EPA numbers. But the film hipsters have been hanging on for dear life when it comes to Trevor Lawrence. They got their comeback win 2 years ago in the playoffs, which helped. The pitchforks went away for a while from the fans and from other people in the media who were coming after Lawrence. But then they came back again after last year, and now this year, a definitive moment in time, down already, I believe 20-3. He goes back. He has a receiver open coming across. He airmails it over the top. We get the Damar Hamlin interception. That to me felt like a breaking point where even his defenders are now flipping into detractors in a way, based upon this one game, the inaccuracies we saw. It was kind of like a hodgepodge of everything bad that has been about Trevor Lawrence at this point, in conjunction with a defense that just couldn't stop the opposition. So it just felt really bad to be down multiple scores basically every single time that he got the ball. Do you think this is a turning point, at least perception-wise, for Lawrence? Because it feels like that for me.
It certainly feels that way. I saw tweets describing it as a bad high school quarterback throw. Like that, I don't know how you
credit to Bill Simmons, I believe, who wrote that. You may have seen that.
Exactly
Bill,
right.
If you're listening, get at me.
Big ups on that one. But I don't know how you get worse than that when describing NFL quarterback play. And if you're talking about game 54, you're talking about 54 million. I don't know.
Got some numerology going on here. Okay, and then the other point that came from this, because of course, you got to dish out your blame to quarterback and to coaching. People really seem fed up with Doug Peterson. I saw a screenshot of team win-loss records for the Eagles of going, I think it was like going, I guess it was only 16 games back then, so maybe it was like going 9-7, 9-7, then things falling off a cliff, and then showing the Bengals having a couple of years with a similar sort of, I'm not the Bengals, the Jaguars with a couple of years and then falling off the cliff. I mean, conveniently cutting off 2017 and when they won the championship, of course. Peterson and the offensive there, people are just, they're fed up. They're fed up with Doug. What do you think about that? Because again, we're week 4 here. We can't exactly regime shift.
Doug was going to fix him, right? I don't understand this. I don't understand.
What about the hair? Does he need to cut the hair?
I don't know. The hair.
You mean
Lawrence?
I've heard a reverse Samson theory that his strength doesn't come from his hair. Maybe if he cuts the hair, he'll go to a new level.
Yeah. I don't know. I thought you were talking about Peterson's hair. I was like, he and I were kind of sharing off. So I was like,
Peterson. Okay, sorry. I interrupted. Go ahead. Go to me with Doug. We'll start with Doug.
Well, I know. I thought he was the guy that was going to fix Trevor. I thought, they brought him in because this is the guy, right? And what he did with Wentz and what then he did with Foles and the former quarterback, hey, look, here's the guy that is going to get the most out of this 1.01. And hasn't happened. And I think they're on 8 straight losses or something like that. And now people are saying, perhaps we need to get rid of Trent Baalke. Ask a nerd if they should have gotten rid of Trent Baalke years ago, and you would have gotten a resounding hell yeah. The guy is not good at what he does. But to try and blame shift to they took the wrong defensive end or edge rusher. I don't know. I think there's a lot wrong in Jacksonville, and I think the biggest part of that problem is at quarterback position. Now, that is my priors about how NFL football teams win, and it's my priors about a guy who won a Super Bowl. It's my priors about, all sorts of things. So just know that my take comes from this kind of inferences based on evidence. But the vibe for me, just looking at it, is you can't just dismiss the quarterback and keep making excuses for the guy. He's the reason they're losing. And he admits it. He's patting himself. I mean, and this is a good thing, but he's patting himself on the chest on the sideline. It's on me. It's on me, guys. I don't know how long that lasts. I don't know how long you can look at that dude and his long, flowy hair and go, yeah, this is our guy. We're just going to ride with this guy. So.
I like that you brought it back to hair at the end there. I do think, though, there is an element, as there always is, of overreaction. One of the things that I saw that I thought was somewhat humorous. Let me bring it up here. Bill Barnwell, which I don't think this was even his point, but a lot of people turned his dots, where he had the dots here for a play. And what people notice on the dots here is that all 5 receivers just kind of like run in a straight line here as Trevor Lawrence is getting sacked. But my defense here, this is where I think people kind of lose it a little bit when they're, I mean, you look at it in the playbook, it's 4th and goal from the 17-yard line. Like, there's not a lot. There's not a lot of like schematic advantages that you're getting here. So, in fact, the fact that Lawrence got sacked so quickly, it probably means all these guys should just be running as quickly as possible to get to the end zone. So I'm gonna go back against that there. But I think there is an element of that too, where it's like now we got the pylon effect, where we're critiquing 4th and 17 yard play calls as if this is like a meaningful sort of distinction with what's going on with the Jags. Okay, let's get the Daniels over for a second. Redrafting today, are you taking Jaden Daniels then above Caleb Williams?
Yeah, I think you always want to be taking like the 3rd quarterback. It just seems like it works out that way.
That's you trade back. So actually, this is the 2nd quarterback in this circumstance, but it was last year too. So maybe we need to update our model on that. It's actually QB2 that you want to be taking.
QB2, QB3. Like I think that's where if you look at the averages, that's where the most value is.
I mean, it probably is actually the right strategy to take draft picks and take a QB2 or QB3 in a situation where they're going to go like 1, 2, 3 or something. Not that anyone would ever actually do that, but you're right.
Yeah. So no, that's my joke. I think that no, Caleb, he's probably going to be fine. Like most of the time I spent watching was week 1, just to kind of figure things out with him and DJ Moore, and because for my buy low. And I took a quick look at the game this week, and he made some good throws. I don't know. Like, I don't think he looks great. Like, I've seen some people say he looks fantastic, and like, oh gosh, if you guys could only just divorce him from this bad scheme, which again, the whole point here was Eberflus was going to like reload and get this right.
They're already coming after the coordinators. We're only 3 games in, and they
want him fired. They want him fired, and I just like, I don't know. I guess, are there that many like bum hires in the NFL at OC that you just, or is it that the people, the pool they're hiring from, don't know how to take advantage of talent in the way that they should? I mean, I don't know the answer to that hiring question, but I do think people bring out the pitchforks on the OC well before they do on the player, and maybe that's healthy. Maybe that's the way to do things. But on the opposite side, you've got guys arguing that, hey, the coach is all that matters at this point. Talent at quarterback is kind of irrelevant. You just need to scheme these guys up.
Yeah, I mean, the beauty is the same people can have both of those takes. I mean, for me, coordinator is just like a prism at which people look at whether they like the quarterback or not. Like, if they like the quarterback and the results are bad, then they're going to blame the coordinator for something. If they don't like the quarterback and the results are good, they're going to say, oh my God, what a scheming genius, whoever it is there. Well, for Daniels, I would take Daniels over Williams, number 1 overall. I was not thinking that going into the draft, but it reminds me a little bit, not quite as much. I remember I was on a podcast with the great Eric Eager, and George Chahuri, who's taking a little bit of hit in the media recently. Their podcast where they were talking about midway through the 2020 season. So after we had Burrow, Tua, and Herbert, and they were asking like, okay, well, who would you take Herbert above Tua? Because Herbert was playing particularly well. And I was like, yeah, I would take Herbert above Tua. And they were kind of shocked at that point because I think the consensus, despite them going back to back in draft position, was Tua was a lot better pick than Herbert because people were very low on Herbert at that point in time. I'm not quite sure if that was the case here, but I do think it was pretty strongly in favor of Williams versus Daniels. But I guess for me, when if you acknowledge the larger truth that it's a weighted coin flip between these guys in the first place, then it's not overreacting to say you would flip it with low-ish confidence. But if you had to make a choice, right, you got to make a decision. It's like these fourth down calls. If you say you got to make a decision, you can't just say, well, it's uncertain, so I'm going to do nothing. It's enough, I think, between a number one and a number two pick to see someone who's performed well because Daniels, this is interesting about the perception standpoint. He had, positive 0.24 EPA per play his first game, mostly just rushing, though. Positive 2.0 is 0.20, excuse me. His second game, those are really good numbers. Like he was actually in the 6-7 sort of EPA per play after weeks 1 and 2. And then he just went nuclear this last week, which is probably like overboard for how good he actually is. But it's not as if this even came on the heels of 2 bad performances so far this year. So you can't underreact either. And I think with Daniels, the correct reaction is to say, sure, let's flip them with the idea that we could want to flip them again before the season ends.
Sure. But then you get problems like last year at this time, maybe it was week 4. Everyone was convinced that Stroud was a dude, and I think this year he's an EPA per play. I don't know, bottom 3rd, maybe bottom 4th. So I mean, if we didn't have that body of work last year and we were just looking on 3 games this year, we would say, oh, Stroud is no longer good, right? So, I mean, your weighted coin flip analogy and decision point analysis is fine, but this is kind of disingenuous because do we get to flip our coin every week and decide who we're going to redraft?
Sure.
I mean, if that's the case,
that's the beauty of it. We get to do that. They don't get to do that, but we get to do that.
Right. So, I mean, if that's the case, then there's multiple decision points. It's not just one, and then the calculus changes and play the odds a little bit more. But I think that I like what I saw out of Daniels, man. That was exciting football. That was a great game to watch. Like people have been down on the NFL. They've been down on scoring. Well, we got 2 Monday night games. Can't say they're island games, but sort of quasi island games, like adjoining island games. And they were both full of at least one team doing a lot of scoring. And that was really cool. I'm happy to see the NFL is back.
Okay. So I don't think I talked to you as much about the passing game, everything that's going on there. I did talk with Ed Fang at the end of last week. And then I also have an interview, which I've already done with Cody Alexander to try to get like a football guy's perspective, a data loving football guy,
Sure.
a rare breed to talk about it. But people
Cody's
were not
great, by the way.
happy.
Cody's great, by the way. Cody is
fantastic, big dateable. He's got it. He's legit. People are not happy though with my idea that there's almost like a religious reverence for running and saying these things and quoting these things going forward. What's your take so far? Where are you on the spectrum of this is noise, this is real? You mentioned we got some good performances last night. Does this alleviate any concerns, even in a very, very small sample, that we're going to see some guys performing better? Because week 3 was even worse, I believe, still overall. I'd have to check the numbers, whether this boosted up the averages or not. Was worse scoring and efficiency and all that stuff wise than weeks 1 and 2 were, which were already pretty bad in comparison to what we'd seen in several years.
Pardon me. Well, I think that I am heartened to see the teams that you would expect to score a lot of points start to score a lot of points, like the Bills, in spots where you would expect them to score a lot of points. I'm heartened to see a young quarterback outperform and put up a big number. I was heartened to see the Burrow get Higgins back and then have 4 receivers all contribute. And I saw and their passing game look explosive. So those are the kind of things I'm talking about. Like on average, I think it's hiding a lot of the improvement I think we're seeing on the upper end of the passing offense scale. I think that should we got Lamar and the Ravens do what they did this week, so that's going to skew things, I think. And Of course, you still got Malik out there with, when he's gone and Love is back, I think you're going to see things shift in Green Bay. So I think there's reason for optimism that the passing game is going to have an uptick. I think that, to the extent that you can know anything about the NFL after 3 weeks, I would buy the idea that we're probably in a lower scoring environment than last year, but not as low as people were fearful of. And I talked to people at the league office, and I was just like, is this DEFCON 2 for you guys? Like, is this really? Are you worried about this? And you're like, whatever. I don't think so. I don't think. I don't think. Yeah. So I've kind of like internalized all those things, and where I come out is I'm a little bullish relative to other people's opinions about how this scoring environment might turn out this year.
Okay, let's talk Jackson for a second, because and the Ravens, because this is another one where last week people reflexively were looking at my rankings, and with the Ravens having, I'm not sure if they moved at all from the previous week. Now I still have them at 5th overall. You might even have them higher because I still have the Lions above there, and you're a noted Lions skeptic. They win this game. They look like they're going to win going away. They don't win going away. And there's even a post-game little interview with Lamar, which I can't seem to find right now, where he basically said, and this is interesting that he said this because I kind of wrote it in my write-up without knowing that he said that, because they had this insane run over expectation. I think it was like 25% over expectation for what you would have believed, and you would have had a high number for them because they were winning significantly the entire time. He was like, man, like I wanted to be in there and just continue to shove it, to shove points down on top of them, just rain more and more points on them. We didn't do that. They almost lost the game at the end. I'm not sure if you watched this game and saw what happened, but I think Lamar has a point when it comes to that. And I was a little concerned about the fact of what they were doing coaching wise with the Ravens. Maybe they were just trying to make sure they were going to secure that first W going forward, because I don't know. I think they're going to have to take a little bit more risk if they really want to be that top-notch team to come out of the AFC this year.
Their last drive was what they wanted, right? They put it away. That's what they built that team to do. But you have to be worried about that Zach Core defense, because that was a large lead that they almost pissed away. And that's not Ravens football, right? You should have won that game by 2 scores. And it came down to them really executing on the offensive side and taking that ball away and not giving a last possession. So I think, I would continue to be worried. I mean, it'll be interesting this week. You talked about the Lions. I know you're down on my Seahawks, but this is going to be a big Monday night game here, right? We got the Sea Chickens and we got the Lions, and I'm not a big Lions guy, and I'm a big booster of the Seahawks, and you think they're garbage and overrated, and so I'm excited to see how this one turns out, though.
Yeah, actually, I'm kind of surprised no one's yelling at me about the Seahawks, but they did move up. They did move up my rankings to 15th, so probably not high enough for some people with their glorious 3-0 ranking. But yeah, well, that's it.
The markets have them at 13, which I think is appropriate.
Yeah, so again, let's chill out, everybody here. You beat Bo Nix. I saw some stat where they said it's the first time a team had held 3 straight opponents to 140 or fewer passing yards since the Legion of Boom did it in 2014. And I was like, okay, guys, let's chill out a little bit here. We're talking about Bo Nix, Skylar Thompson, and Jacoby Brissett in weeks 1 through 3. I don't know if we've proven that much yet, but yeah, they're an interesting team. But back to the Ravens for a second. I think this is maybe a little bit of a teaching point. I would say is there is a possibility that the Ravens defense is not as good as you're traditionally thinking they are, right? So if you act as if you think they're that good, it's an optimal way to play the way that they played in the second half of that game, because you would have just assumed that you could, close, check the box on the fact that the Cowboys weren't going to score all these touchdowns and come back in that sort of way. But how much sometimes do you think coaches have to say, we don't know how good this defense is going to be, and we can't just assume they're going to be the same defense that we've seen for the last several years?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think the way coaches think about it, I saw a tweet today or yesterday, and it was a college coach, and he was talking about halftime adjustments. But I thought it was
I saw
insightful.
the same. I saw the same. Yeah.
I thought it was an insightful comment, and he said that the way I've always approached it is that you go into a game with what you think, based on the tape, a defense is going to do, and it's never that way. And
Right.
then so you have to fix your offense to defeat those new adjustments. And if you do that in the first half, in the second half, they'll come back out looking like what you saw on tape. They'll be the team you thought they were. And if you don't do it, then you're just going to get more of the same from the first half to the second. And I feel like the adjustments were made on Dallas's side, and nothing was really done to counteract that by Zach Orr. And I think that was one of the things that McDonald did so well. He just kept the offense guessing, and he continued. Like, people say there's a Mike McDonald system, and man, the people I talk to, they're like, no, it's system. No, he's just really good at calling defenses and keeping people on their toes and being deceitful and disguising, and there's no real system here other than being sharp and having players that can communicate on the field and make changes on the fly. So I think that, and maybe that's what we're seeing in Minnesota, right? Their defense has looked really good this year. And I was reading a Greer article where he was basically saying that's why they are doing so well. I am skeptical of everything Minnesota, and I'm sorry to go off out of left field again, talk about a different team, but this idea that Minnesota is now the Mike McDonald defense that can, or the Bill Belichick defense that can do all these things on the fly, I'm a little skeptical of. But yeah, but
We'll get to the Vikings. We'll get to the Vikings. You're still, I'll print out the Sam Darnold apology form and have that at our beck and call if we need to.
Do I need to make a Sam Darnold apology? How much did he throw for? Like 200 yards?
I know he wasn't that good. I know, but he's getting the love. Okay, let's one more team that's underperforming. That I still have as being the second best team in the NFL according to markets here, and I don't trust these like Tuesday numbers. They're still in the top 3, but I don't know if that's the case or not. It's the San Francisco 49ers. Weird numbers for the 49ers this year. Defense has been okay, I guess, but not great, like outside of the top 5 in kind of the top 10-ish sort of thing. Offense by the numbers hasn't been great, but by some fundamentals like success rate and things like that, they've actually looked really good. They just haven't been getting the yak, and they haven't been getting the explosive plays that you would have hoped that they were getting going forward. So I still see them as fundamentally a pretty good team. But again, they're a team that's going to jump out to people, and they're going to say, how could they possibly be a really high team? People probably aren't going to believe the market's also on them based upon what we've seen these first 3 weeks. Are you concerned, buying, selling, whatever's going on with the 49ers?
Yeah, I'm lower than the markets. They have them number 3. I think that's too high given all of their injuries. Obviously, everyone's discounting the markets. You are all discounting the loss of CMC, but they got Kittle out, they got Debo out. They've got a lot of questions now on defense. I think in terms of just their ability to keep them in the game. I thought Purdy looked good. I think you can now kind of put to bed the idea that it's the weapons that make the man. I think after a game like this, you kind of, I think his agent is going to point to it at the end of the year and go, look.
I mean, his grading is like the second best in the NFL. It's a weird thing where he's performing worse than his grading, where that was obviously extremely different in the other direction in previous seasons.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the one good thing that San Francisco can take away from all of this is that they probably have a guy. They probably have a dude, which is an amazing thing to say, given where he was drafted. And and given all the shade that's been thrown his way with like, how could anyone not succeed in that system with those ancillary pieces and the skill positions and Trent Brown left tackle. And I think, so I am not as high on San Francisco, but they have weathered this injury storm. I mean, 1-3 is not great, but in terms of how they've looked and the EPA per play they put up on offense, I think they're well positioned to continue to be the favorite in the division. So I don't know. I guess I can't disagree too strongly, but 3 seems high. I would definitely have Buffalo ahead of them. I would definitely have Philadelphia ahead of them right now, given the state of their team.
Philadelphia's interesting. Yeah, maybe. I mean, I do have Buffalo ahead of them. I guess it's just Kansas City hasn't looked great by my numbers. Is the thing. So they're still ahead of the Chiefs. Okay, so on the other side of things, you want to just dump on Sam Darnold. Yeah, I do think it's the case where, according to my numbers, I still have Minnesota as being a below average offense, like as far as my projection going forward. But their defense looks pretty good. Now, maybe it's overweighting a smaller sample. Maybe they got a weakened 49ers team. Maybe they got a Texans offense that's not as good as what the numbers say that it's been so far this year. All that being said, they've been pretty good. It's not like they've just held down these teams. They've held them down pretty consistently versus what your expectations would have been going into this game. So what about that? What about the Vikings? Well, we'll put aside in our minds that Sam Darnold is some sort of elite quarterback comeback arc. But even if he can be average-ish, can the defense be good enough to carry them into the playoffs, especially having already logged 3 wins this season?
Yeah, I mean, I struggle. Well, clearly, I struggle with the metrics on defense this early in the season. I struggle with a full season's worth of metrics. So it's really about vibes. And like I said, Breer is out there. He's interviewing the coaches. He's interviewing the players, kind of like getting this sense of the team as being able to adjust on the fly, as I mentioned earlier. And I mean, hey, look, if that's what they're doing, I mean, or then you've got, of course, Purdy saying, you got a crazy scheme, dude, and like getting picked up on the mic there, and then people kind of clowning him for that. Like, and that's the interesting thing. Like, it was Purdy right? And if Purdy's right, then can you still be down on Purdy? I don't know. There's just like a lot of different opinions that don't seem to go well together. I tend to come down that Purdy was right. It was a crazy scheme. I tend to come down on the idea that Purdy is pretty good at what he does now and should probably be paid. And so that kind of leads me uncomfortably to the conclusion that maybe this defensive scheme is for real. And if that's the case, then you don't really need Darnold to do what he's been doing. I don't know. What has he been doing? I get 4 touchdowns. Great. But he had a couple good passes. I'll say that. One of his touchdowns was actually a really nice pass. But like, yeah, no, still selling Darnold. He's no Andy Dalton. That's what I'll say.
Okay, yeah, we have for the Vikings, which I think will be interesting, especially if assuming Jordan Love comes back this weekend, which I think he might. I don't know if he will or not. But we got Packers, at home versus the Jets, at home versus the Lions, and then at Rams the next 4 games. Rams, I don't know what to think about the Rams, but that's it's a little bit of a schedule there. They got some easy games after that, but who knows? We could be coming back 4 weeks from now and seeing them at like 3-4 or 4-3 or something like that, and maybe not quite the enthusiasm for the Vikings. Okay, we mentioned the Seahawks, who you believe, and I mean, I'll just say it's pretty simple for the Seahawks, right? If you take there's a strength of schedule number that past strength of schedule that just simply weights my number, just weights like my most recent power rankings. Again, if you're looking at the point differential versus an average team on a neutral field of the teams they've played, using the current ranking for the Dolphins, because they played against Skylar Thompson, they didn't play against Tua, so that doesn't factor in. I mean, they're like the easiest schedule pretty significantly. The Bills are also fairly easy schedule. The Browns, shout out to the Browns who are not doing so hot. Also a pretty easy schedule, which is not great because the Cowboys are looking a little fraudulent. So that's the simple thing with the Seahawks. It's like worst. They play the worst teams in the NFL. It's good to log those victories against, a fantastic run so far this season of opponents, but maybe we don't know quite as much as we think we do about this team.
Well, let me push back on the Cowboys being fraudulent. Why would you say at this point in the season that they're frauds? And I think most people would answer is their answer would be they can't stop the run. Like that's it. That's the reason why they're frauds. Like, if there's one thing an NFL team can do, it's stop the run if it really, really wants to. Like, anyone in the NFL has the ability in terms of DCs to call a scheme that stacks the box, takes care of every gap. Good.
Yeah.
Are we still going? All right. Yeah. No. And so I feel like
I thought that was the
Cowboys
longest
are an
dramatic
example
pause
of a team that
of history.
Are we still here?
Yeah. Go ahead. I don't know. Maybe I am losing you a little bit here.
StreamYard messing up, or is this me?
I have no clue. It looks okay from my end, so I can't really tell. All right, but let me rant a little bit when it comes to the Cowboys and why I think it might be a little fraudulence here. I mean, it's a pretty simple formula if you're going to put into place why you think that the Cowboys might not be as good as they are, and that's you get destroyed by the Saints. Yeah, against the run a lot, but then not so hot against the pass either. You get destroyed by the Ravens, at least for most of the game, until the win probability gets to 99th percentile, and then it floats all the way back. And then the last thing is your win that you logged is against the Cleveland Browns, and now you look up and you see that the Browns have the worst offense in the NFL, at least by EPA per play. So, I don't know. Not exactly looking so hot there. So I guess it would be the combination of that. It would be your wins against the Browns, and you have two embarrassing losses then against these other teams. So that's the combination of events, which leads to some healthy skepticism when it comes to the Cowboys.
All right, I think I'm back, but yeah, I think you wrapped up what I was going to say, which is I don't know how you can lean on a take about the run game as being the reason why a team is fraudulent this early in the season. It's just too early to know anything about defense in that regard.
Yeah. I mean, they haven't been great against the pass either. So one other team that's going to get some love, at least by the numbers, for those who are just looking at record, I guess. I mean, I don't know. Does anyone believe in the Steelers? I guess the Steelers maybe this is a larger conversation when we're talking about Justin Fields, Malik Willis, Sam Darnold, whoever else you're throwing in this bucket, is if you sprinkle some magic coaching dust on top of these dudes, and all of a sudden they're great players here. Do we believe what are we thinking? Is coaching more important than it has been in the past? Is this noise that we've seen so far? Are we all being fooled? What do you think about that? Because there is a little bit of a growing movement of, you just get yourself a Sam Darnold and then a great coordinator, and you'll be okay going forward.
I mean, what's your goal? Is your goal to win a Super Bowl? Is your goal to put a winning record out there and maybe squeak into the playoffs? I mean, it depends on where you're at as a franchise, what your window looks like. I think there is a case to be made for scheme and a mid quarterback and smashing easy buttons. I mean, this is an argument we've made for years and years and years. If you do that, you can be competitive while you're building a team. So long as on the back end, you continue to try and hit a home run with that franchise QB. And that's kind of why I'm bullish on the Seahawks. I think they are the type of team who have kind of a mid quarterback, no matter what these film nerds say. Like, he's just okay. But he's good enough to win you enough games, especially if you have a creative defense on the back end. And these guys are pointing out, the Darnolds of the world. They're pointing out what Derek Carrs of the world. Is that really where you want to go Kubiak,
Yeah.
fine. I
Fool
mean,
me
he
once, shame on you. In the
yeah,
words of George W. Bush, once you fool me, you're never gonna don't fool me again, or whatever he said for the next part.
yeah, fool me once, shame, and fool me twice. Don't get fooled again. But I think that the Saints, they kind of fell back to earth this week. You saw Tampa Bay fall back to earth this week. I think that was another example. I don't know. Baker, I'm still kind of bullish on as just a mid QB you can win with. But again, yeah, coaching matters. It always has. Coaching that takes advantage of the talent on the field, coaching that mashes easy buttons as much as can for the quarterback, so that they don't have to be, run, pass, hero ball on third down. Like, I think all of that is just sharp. But now I think when, as you keep pointing out on Twitter, when teams are going to be smart, when they're going to allow you to take the 4 yards on the run and force you to pass against their 2 deep safety look, or at least a defense that is presenting to the quarterback as trying to take away their intermediate and deep stuff. Do you have to have a guy who's willing to push the ball into those windows? Got to have some arm arrogance. And I don't know that those mid quarterbacks kind of fit the bill in the way that maybe the NFL is going to require moving forward, at least for this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think the part of the equation that's missing in this, get the coach. Concentrate more on that than you're concentrating on getting the quarterback. Is that, I mean, I don't believe coaches are as important as as what we're seeing in these small sample results for these quarterbacks. But let's run a thought experiment and say, okay, right. Let's pretend they are. Let's pretend Clint Kubiak for the Saints, Matt LaFleur for the Packers. Where these are the guys who are mentioned in the tweet, and Kevin O'Connell for the Vikings are that important. Like, they really can boost up significantly, materially, any quarterback who's of a mid range into someone who's like putting up good numbers, efficiency. The problem really becomes, what is your strategy for finding these guys versus other possible options? I mean, is there anything that we would have known before Kevin O'Connell was with the Vikings, before Clint Kubiak now, other than his last name, is with the Saints, before uh, LaFleur, other than the fact that he was tangentially attached to, well, not tangentially, he was pretty well attached to Sean McVay for the Packers. I mean, there's been plenty of guys who were like close to Sean McVay who don't work out. Plenty of guys who have like famous last names who don't work out. So that's the problem. It's not as if they found these coaches that were highly desired and everyone knew 100% they were a slam dunk and they had a proven track record and we knew everything, and then there's a bidding war and everyone's throwing millions and millions of dollars at these guys. It was just a dart throw anyway to get these guys in the first place. Whereas for quarterbacks, we have evidence as a prospect. We have evidence within the NFL that we can start to make these decisions and and identify who those guys are much better. So the problem is, even if the coaches are really worth that much, there's not like a great plan in place to go and find those guys other than trying one and seeing how it goes. And trying one and seeing how it goes, that's a long commitment. That's a year-long commitment. You can't just try one for a week and then toss them out and then bring in another one the next week.
And I guess what's frustrating when you see names like Kubiak thrown in the mix as like obvious great hires at offensive coordinators, is that one of the perhaps the only kind of obvious edge that you could get over the field in hiring OCs is to not be nepotistic and to go outside of the network of names. And yet here we go. We got another Kubiak on the list of guys saying, well, this is the type of guy you need to hire. And so if there was one edge you could push, it would be to not do that, right? And so I don't know. I think it's tough.
Yeah. I mean, and also, he had a little run, I guess, as the offensive coordinator. I guess it was quarterbacks coach underneath Kevin Stefanski, and then he was promoted to offensive coordinator, replacing his dad back in 2021 for the Vikings. And it was like, yeah, it's okay. I mean, like it wasn't, again, these same guys, the Lou Amaruno, the big Lou over in Cincinnati, and others. sometimes it goes well, sometimes it doesn't go well. And I think especially when we're looking at guys who don't have a track record, right? Like these guys don't have any definable track record as being the guy. Like LaFleur was not the guy necessarily. I mean, he was in Tennessee, I guess, but even then, Tennessee, like how great were the results? They were okay. Tannehill got pretty good after he was gone, right? Like if they don't have a defining track record as being the guy beforehand, what do we really know about them moving forward too? We don't have any track record. And I guess that's kind of my problem with it. It's like you have to have a strategy that you can actually implement. And when people get upset about, you draft the best players, again, draft the best players, hire the best coaches. Yeah, like those are really, really good strategies. The problem is you can't operationalize those strategies. And that's why you have to lean on other strategies, which are tilting the odds in your favor, because you can actually do those things. And you can't just say draft better than everyone else, hire better than everyone else, definitively. Okay, I'm just gonna let it sit for a while here. See if Josh jumps in.
I'm still here. I'm still here. No, I've said my piece.
All right. What else do you want to talk about before we get out of here?
I guess we could just wrap up with the buy low stuff.
All right. Let's get into the buy low. There's always buying and selling, and you want to buy low rather than buy high. That's what I say. That's my grand markets take here. All right. Let me bring up the old video file.
Actually, why don't you bring up the results from the main slate?
Okay, let me grab that while we're talking. Why don't you talk around it a little bit as
Sure.
I'm
So it was week 3 results and the second week of the buy low for this year. Last week we had 2/3 of the wide receivers that were on the Millionaire Maker winning lineup were buy lows, and happy to say we repeated that feat again this past week. We had DJ Moore as one of them, and Amari Cooper was the second, and they both were, I think it was around 5% owned each. So, I mean, if you just look at the structure of the lineup, the kind of texture of it, he went this winner, this Beef Stew 93. He went. It was a big, Chicago Bears stack, right? He got Caleb Williams, DJ Moore, and I believe Rome. And look,
yeah, Rome Dunze. Who would have thought Caleb Williams? I would not even have thought that coming out of this. Okay, but go ahead.
Yeah, no, and then he paid up at running back, right, with Jonathan Taylor and Saquon, and then he threw in a tight end, Dallas Goedert. I think that maybe more than anything was what pushed him over the top. But those two wide receivers, right in there again, and I think that just speaks to the power of this profiling method that we do over at the buy low, and that's just to find these guys who are getting lots of opportunity and just haven't quite capitalized on it. I wrote up both of them in week 2, and that analysis kind of still held through week 3. So this week, one of the guys I was looking at early is Justin Fields' favorite target so far this year, the Steelers, and that's Pickens. And instead of showing you incomplete passes, I just wanted to show he's had 3 deep passes to Pickens so far this year. And you can see this one at the bottom, just past the around the 25 plus 25. And
I remember this one. I think it came like as the half was, it was like near the end of the half. So it was pretty good like play call, because they made it seem like, okay, we're going to roll out and throw it down the sideline over like up at the top to get one play in to get into field goal range. And then they came all the way back across to actually get the sideline throw. I guess he didn't and get out of bounds. I don't know if he actually needed to. They probably had timeouts, but and to get that play. But go ahead.
No, and just the general thrust of this, because I'm not going in here to analyze actual plays and schemes against the play in the past concept, but I am saying what I take away from this, besides a really cool route from Pickens and all that, is that he is always looking deep for this guy, and they've been successful on those deep plays. And what hasn't happened is any of this has turned into a touchdown yet this year. And so that's really the regression to the mean that we're looking for here. That was a beautiful pass, by the way. just dropped it right in there. He had outside leverage on that play, and so there's only one place that Justin Fields could put it, and he did. And this is all week one. This one is week 3. This is the last week against the Chargers. Chargers defense looked like crap in the second half. This one is kind of a scramble drill, but he gets out to the left, and then he kind of finds he gets the whole shot there against the zone. And I think he's going to continue to do this with Pickens moving forward. I think that one of the things I was trying to do yesterday was trying to figure out what to think about Justin Fields this year. And I'm kind of averaging, the film takes. And we had Ben Solak, he was saying, oh, he's making these small decisions that are better. And I found evidence on the opposite side of that from another guy I respect, JT O'Sullivan. He's kind of turning down some of these easy completions. And so what I would like to see is a Fields who is going to continue to push the ball to Pickens in these deep shots, and when he has the opportunity, but then can sustain drives so that he gets more opportunities to get the ball to Pickens, right? That they get more opportunities to actually make plays, and so I'm a little concerned about that. But you only need one play to win a tournament. Really, one really long play. There was an end zone target for Pickens in week 3 that I thought was really nice. It just didn't quite get the ball there. Would have won. I mean, he won the route. If Fields had put the ball in the type of way he did on that deep pass to Pickens there, if he had done that in the end zone against the Chargers, they would have come away with 7, and Pickens probably wouldn't be a buy low this week. So he's one guy I'm looking at. The buy low will be released on Thursday, late Thursday, probably just before the games kick off, and it will have analysis of 2 or 3 more guys on there for your reading pleasure.
Now, one thing I'll say about Fields, and this is not buy low related, so apologies to buy low aficionados, but as far as what he's doing right so far this week, I mean, some of it is making the plays, some of it is not making the bad plays. I mean, it's harder to figure that out, right? Like how much credit he deserves versus blocking versus scheme. Like, is it a change in mentality? I don't know. I have no clue. But if you cut off just after the first 3 games of the seasons, this is his 4th year in the NFL right now. Sack EPA lost was 20 as a rookie, 16, 19, this year 9. So kind of cutting in half that amount. And then also, when it comes to interception, EPA lost. It was 5 as a rookie, so not too bad, but he was barely throwing the ball. 12, 21 last year, and then only 5 this year. So he's basically overall the negative EPA plays. He's at 14 now, where he's never been less than 25. So almost double in the past. And he's doing that on a lot higher volume than he was. Like when he had this number that was 25 as a rookie versus 14 now, that was on 61 plays as a rookie versus 118 plays right now. It was on 51 dropbacks as a rookie versus 91 dropbacks right now. So he's being used a lot more. The sustainability on the interception side maybe is something he can keep up. On the sack side, I'm not quite so sure about it, but at least from a value like Steelers perspective, he's bringing the passing value for sure more than he has, because he's not running. That's another thing that's pretty interesting, is that his rushing EPA is like meh. So far, he's barely adding anything, where that was a big component of what he's doing. He's passing it a lot better. But then almost most importantly, he's not bringing in the negatives, which is kind of one of the reasons I thought they were going to go with Russell Wilson, is to like avoid the bottom tier outcomes, the bottom falling out with Fields. But so far, he's been able to provide that floor and give them a chance to win every week with their defense, which just happens to be the number 1 defense in the NFL when it comes to opponent EPA.
Yeah, and so like Solak's point was, he's taking the check down now, right? He's being smart. And then like JT O'Sullivan's point was, he's still making these kind of weird second window throws that most NFL quarterbacks don't even try and attempt. And, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's that arm arrogance I was talking about earlier that we want to see, and that bodes well for someone like Pickens. So I don't know. I'm bullish. I think Pickens might have a good week this week.
I mean, he definitely seems like someone who would play better from in a neutral game script or from ahead than playing from behind. And again, with that defense, he's had that luxury so far so far this year. I don't think you want him dropping back when a team knows you're going to pass and he's trying to make a play and then bad things end up happening. So maybe there's some sustainability there. At the same point in time, I'd still say it's coin flip whether or not we see Russell Wilson again this year or not. All right. We've said it all. We've done it all. We got the Herms buy low. Everyone will be eagerly refreshing their browsers on Thursday, waiting for that one to drop. I'm going to publish an interview with Cody. I guess I'll just drop it tomorrow morning, talking about all the passing game stuff. Maybe I'll come back at you guys later on Friday to review Thursday football and the weekend, and then we'll be back with Herms Meyer with Josh on next Tuesday. Thanks for everyone for tuning in, and I'll be talking at you then. Thanks so much.